As I told you before, this poem is about charge forward, this poem is about an attack, this poem is about battle itself. It's the Battle of Balaclava, and the soldiers move forward into a valley. And we have this refrain from, well, the refrain comes in later. We have this repetition. Theirs not to make reply, theirs not to reason why, theirs but to do and die. And he talks about into the valley of death rode the 600. And the 600 is a refrain that goes throughout the poem where the soldiers are named as 600 because 600 men went into the valley and only a few came back. Yeah, so it wasn't that all 600 died. That's a misconception. Some did come back, and that is largely how the event was reported. Lots of people are always like, well, if they all died, how do we know? And it's, well, they didn't all die. Some of them came back, and you see that in the poem if you read it closely. So we see theirs. We talked about this with checking out my history. Theirs, and the idea of 600. Firstly, let's think about this idea of the group. Now, when we first think about a group, and we think about soldiers here, so it is slightly different to them in checking out history. They're a group. Theirs not to do this, theirs not to do this, theirs to do this. The 600. They're a group. And there's many of them here. And they have this kind of group identity of the Light Brigade. They're the Light Brigade, aren't they? And they all belong to this same group. They belong to the Light Brigade. And that kind of idea of theirs, 600 suggests they're all together, doesn't it? So there's an idea of unity and togetherness. And that's the beauty of a group identity, really. We talked about the negatives of a group identity, but there are lots of beautiful parts of being a group, of feeling that you belong to something, that you are united by something, that you are together and connected on that. And lots of people in war do talk about kind of the bonds you create as soldiers. They talk about the idea of being brothers in arms. I'll write that there for you. And there's that common knowledge that you're bonded through life and death. That idea that you will fight to live and die together. And that these people are there to look out for you as well as you are to look out for them. So we have this and this kind of respect for the 600 and this powerful representation of belonging and willingness to fight, to live and die together for their country. And again, we see this kind of patriotic, national kind of dedication to country, to the king, to pride, national pride, patriotic identity. But I think there's an interesting comment to be made here about theirs, 600. I think Alfred Lord Tennyson reminds us that, like how Eva Smith is often referred to as that girl, girls of that sort, business, there is no names here, there is no individuality. This is not the story of Two Song Overture of Nanny de Maroon. This is a story of 600. And there is an element of dehumanization. In this poem, it tells us that war, that conflict, requires a loss of identity. Now, I've used an arrow on purpose because with conflict, there is always consequence. If there is a conflict, there is before and there is after. And I want you to really think about what is the conflict, what is the before, and what is the after, because that will really help you to talk about the conflict in an intelligent way, in a thoughtful and considered way. So Alfred Lord Tennyson is telling us that war requires a level of dehumanization. It causes a loss of identity, and it causes kind of a change in personal history. These men are not remembered as Jordan, from Glasgow. It wouldn't be Glasgow, would it? Jordan from Hull, or Michael from Brixton. They're not remembered as the people that they are or the lives that they lived. They are remembered as the 600 soldiers who went into the Battle of Balaclava. And it's that idea of the permanence of history, the idea of the power of national identity, but also the loss of personal identity. In becoming a part of this national identity, they are losing their personal identity. So we can talk about how, although they are glorified for their dedication, we do understand their loss of personal identity.